Hello, today we're going to be building a background generator project. This project will allow you to pick a color, so let's say a variant of yellow and a variant of blue, and we could just copy this and put it into our CSS and have this beautiful gradient. And we also have a generate random color function, which will occur each time we click this button, and a random background will display on the screen. So let's dive right into the project. So open up your terminal. So on a Mac, you just search for the terminal right here. And then we'll go to our desktop. So we can do cd, which is change directory, into your desktop. And then we will make a new folder, which is mkdir, which is make directory. And then we will call it background generator. So you can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it background generator tutorial. And then I'm going to open this folder using the code command. So I'll open it in VS Code. Let's cd into desktop, and then I'll open it in VS Code using this command, code background generator tutorial. And then the folder will open up in VS Code. If you have some error with code, I will leave a link below to how to solve it, and it's a Stack Overflow link, and it's a common problem when using the code command. Okay, so let's get started with this project. So make a new file called index.html and another file called style.css. And the last JavaScript file, which will be script.js. So let's first work on the HTML file. So HTML file, we'll just use this command, and so that will just be a exclamation point, which will make your HTML file boilerplate. And how I'm doing that is I have an extension called emit snippets, HTML snippets, and just some built-in things to VS Code. So the title of this project is background generator. We don't need these meta tags, so we can just remove these. We'll change this one to a link, and don't forget to add the slash here, which means that we're going to close it. And we need to link our CSS. So our CSS, our styling, is a style sheet, and we need to specify the name of it, which is style.css. So now in the body, we will set the ID to gradient, which will be the ID of the body, which we can look at later. And we will set an h1, which is our text that we're going to display on the screen, called background generator. And then we can display an h2, which will say our current background. We'll say current background. And now we should make our color pickers. So if I save the file, and so you just use this, you open it up, a background generator file that you folder that you made, and just drag it to Google Chrome. And now you will see what we've built so far. Nice. So if we look back at the finished project, we have these two color pickers. How can we do that? So now with the color pickers, so we're going to just define this as color pickers. we will add some inputs. So you might be thinking that input is this place where you write text and everything, but this can actually be used for a lot more. So if we do type color, then you can actually see that we get this, a nice little color picker in a matter of seconds. So just copy paste this. We're going to have 2 of them, and to specify between them, they're going to be a class of color 1, and this one will be a class of color 2. And they will also have a name of their class as well, and for this one as well. And we need the default value. As you can see here, the default value that we have is yellow and red. You can change that if you want, personal preference. So the yellow hex code is FFFF00. And for red, it is hashtag FF and then 4 zeros. And as we can see here, we have our yellow color picker and our red color picker, which we can change. So now we need the place where the color will actually be displayed for our CSS. So right here. And that we will just put an empty h3. And this h3 will actually be changed using JavaScript. And it will display the background CSS. Okay. So now we need this random button, and that's really simple. All we need to do is create a div. So div.random. So just create a div with a class of random, and inside that we're going to have a button which says generate random color, and it's going to be a class of random button. So the reason why we put classes on things is to easily distinguish the difference between, example, this input and this input. Okay. So down at the bottom here, we need to link our JavaScript. So we'll do that by saying that it will be type of text / JavaScript, and the source where our code will actually be written is script.js. Okay, so now we have our generate random color, our titles, and our 2 color pickers. But right now is looking kind of bad, so let's make it look a little nicer. So right now for the H1, so we're selecting this H1 right here, our title. We're going to give it a font family, which is basically just a font of Veranda. And we'll just have a font size of 40 pixels and a color of white. So your font, you can choose it. It's personal preference, really. I think Veranda looks best with this one. So it's not really clear now because we have a black background. But this is a quite nice font. This is why I like it. So for the body part right here, which contains all the information, it will have a font of Railway and sans serif. So the reason why we put more than one font here is that if this font is not available on the person's laptop, then there will be a backup for it. And then we will have a color. This is just the starting color, just to make it a bit nicer, of RGBA 0, 0, 0, and 0.5 for a bit of transparency. See? And we'll do text align center to center everything right there. Text transform uppercase, because we want everything here to be uppercase. Most of the CSS is really personal preference. So if you don't want it uppercase, or if you want to change the color of the headings, you can do that. That's perfectly fine. And we'll put a letter spacing of 0.5 EM. Nice. Top of 15%, just so that there's a bit of width between here and here. And that looks already much nicer than before. And our starting background will be linear gradient of to right, yellow, and red. So as you can see here, it looks exactly like this. And, well, not exactly, but nearly. And the reason why we're doing this is so that we don't have a plain white background and we have something to start off with. So now we just need to style the random color button. So we can do that by specifying the random button class and saying it's a background color of orange red, a border of white. No, well, you can do border of white solid if you want a border, but I'm not going to do that. And we will use a border radius, which curves the ends of the button, of 2 pixels. A color of RGBA. Again, we're going to have a bit of transparency here, so just put that in. And we will have padding of 15 px and 12 px, just to make the button look a little nicer. A font size of 13 pixels. And a font family, which is just the font, of Railway or sans serif, like last time. Nice. So now our button is styled. So this border doesn't look that nice, so I'll just say border none, which just removes the border. Okay, time for the fun part, time for the JavaScript, and where we're actually going to add interactivity to this website. So the first thing we need to think about is really getting all these elements and being able to change them. So that's really simple with JavaScript. We can just use this query selector function. So we just say our CSS, so all the CSS here, and where we're going to put our CSS. So right here, this is the CSS, and we're going to get it with the query selector, so we can change it and add to it. So we can just make a new variable, const CSS is equal to document, which is our website, .query selector h3. So this means we're getting the query selector, we're getting this element, and we're getting it the h3. And now we need to make the color 1, and the color 2. And we can do that by getting the document.query selector, but instead of getting like an h3 or an input, we're actually going to get the class of it. So .color1. And we're going to do the same thing with color 2, but just name it differently. And random, so the random button, so we can keep track when it's clicked, is document query selector random button. Okay, so we also need to get the body of the whole thing. So the body is this whole website, and that we can do by getting a different one, which is document dot get element by ID, because we specified an ID for this, which is called gradient. Okay. Now we need a function to set the gradient every time the gradient is changed. So we can do that by creating a function called setGradient, and we can do that by calling the function keyword and then the name of our function. And we can say that we have to, this is what the CSS will be. It's body.style.background, and then it will be a template string. A template string just allows you to put variables inside strings, and that will be linear gradient to right, like in our CSS. And this is how we put the variable in. We put this $, and then we have an empty object, which will say color1.value, which will be the value of color1. And that's what we're going to display right here. Oops. And we're also going to display the color2.value. So we can do that by doing this, color2.value. So now that we've got that down, we need to do css.textContext, which will be the text. So we're just changing the text to a new template string with the body.style.background, and don't forget the semicolon at the end. Okay, so now we can try this out by adding a color1.addEventListener, input, and then set gradient. So this means every single time that the input changes, in this case the hex color, it will call this function set gradient, and it will display the gradient on the screen and change it. Okay, so let's do the same with color2.addEventListener, input, set gradient. So let's see what's happening now. So now if we choose a color, we have some error. Okay, so it turns out that there was a bit of spelling error, and just make sure that it's linear gradient is spelled correctly, and that was my problem. So here, now that we can look back at the app, and here we can go here, and you can see that the CSS is right here. Perfect. So just a minor problem here, we have this. So we'll just say that text transform uppercase will only be applied on the H2 of it. So is this an H2? Yes, it is. So H2, we'll say text transform uppercase. Otherwise, we'll just do that to make sure that it's lowercase and ready for our CSS. Okay, nice. So the next thing that we have to do is doing the generate random color function. And how we're going to do that is we're going to create a new function called random color. And this function will just return a random color. So we'll just say let color equal this. So we're going to do a hex color. So hex colors always start with this, and we're just going to add it like that. And then we'll just say for let I equal 0, I greater than 6, I plus plus. So this basically means we're going to repeat this for 6 times. And every single time we loop through this, we'll increment I and add 1 to it. so that it will stop after it reaches 6. And then now we need to add the I, or a random number, to this color. So we can do that by color plus equals math.floor math.random times 10. And all this means is that we're going to get a random number between 0 and 10. And we're just going to add that to our color variable. And then we need to just return the color. So right now, let's just console.log the color. So we'll just do console.log random color. And let's see what it gives us. It gives us this nice color. Great. It's working. So now we need a function to set the random color. And we're just going to set the color1 dot value equal to random color. So a new random color, and color2 dot value to another random color. And then we need to set the gradient. Each time we change the gradient, we just need to set using the setGradient function. And how are we going to do this? So we want every time this thing is clicked, this button is clicked, I want this setRandomColor function to run. Well, that's easy. We'll just add another addEventListener function. So we'll just do the random, which is a random button, to addEventListener, click. So every time it's clicked, I want it to call the setRandomColor function. So now if we look at this, it works. Wonderful. So this has been our background generator project, and I hope you enjoyed and learned something new.